Advanced Math Ladies, this is lesson 1.4, part 1. This has to do with using the zero factor property to solve equations, and it also has a little bit to do with the square root property. If you'll look at number 2, it has x squared equals negative 25. To undo a square, we do the square root, but we have to do the square root of both sides. So the square root of x squared is x, and because we wrote the square root, we have to put plus or minus, and this is equal to the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 25. Well, the square root of 25 is 5, square root of negative 1 is I. That one wasn't too bad, but was it? Okay, number 10 asks you to look at the 4 equations, A through D, and determine which one is set up for direct use of the square root property and solve it. Well, if you'll look at number 2, the answer to that would have to be B, which looks like this, because it's set up for us to just take the square root of both sides. And when we do, the square root of 2x plus 5 squared is just 2x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. Then we need to subtract 5. So we have 2x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 7. Divide everything by 2, and rather than go to the next page, I'm going to just come up here. So this will be x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 7 all over 2. Okay, if you will look at number 16, this is where we have the zero factor property discussed. The zero factor property requires us to do AC factoring and then solve the 2 parts that we have. So number 16 has 2x squared minus x minus 15 equals 0. So to do AC factoring, we have to determine what A times C is. A is 2, C is 15. So that's 30. The factors of 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. And we're looking for the signs to be different, so we want to subtract and get 1. So that would be a plus 5 and a negative 6. So what we need to do is put those in the middle. So that's 2x squared plus 5x minus 6x minus 15 equals 0. Then we take the common factor out of the first 2, which is x, and that leaves 2x plus 5. Then we take the common factor out of the second 2, and my rule is, if this is negative, you need to factor out a negative. So this would be a negative 3. So negative 6x divided by negative 3 is 2x. Negative 15 divided by negative 3 is plus 5. Now you have the common factor of 2x plus 5. And what's left of the purple one is x, and the blue one is negative 3. We have already done this part, but the zero product rule says that when I'm at this point, that one of these, either this one or this one, has to equal 0. So that's what we do, is we set 2x plus 5 equal to 0, and we solve it. Subtract 5. 2x equals negative 5. So x equals negative 5 halves. That's one of our answers. Then we solve the second one, which is x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides, so x equals 3. Okay, look at number 22. 22 has 9x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0. So AC equals 36. So 1 times 36. Sorry, I keep hitting the button. 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. I'm looking for the signs to be the same, and they're both negative, so I'm going to add to get 12, which would be these two. So we have 9x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 4 equals 0. You're looking for the common factor of the first two, which would be a 3x, which leaves 3x minus 2. And the common factor of these two, because this is negative, we're going to take out a negative with our common factor of 2. Negative 6x divided by negative 2 is 3x. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So now we have a common factor of 3x minus 2. And what that leaves is 3x minus 2. And the zero product property says that I need to set those equal to 0 to solve them. But if you'll notice, they're exactly the same, so I only have to solve it once. Add 2 to both sides. So x equals 2/3. And this x equals 2/3 also. You don't have to show the work on solving both of them when they're the same for me. Okay, 26 is the beginning of the square root property. The square root property is like the very first problems we did, which says we're going to take the square root of both sides and solve for the variable. So 26 has x squared equals 121. This is already squared on the left, so I can take the square root of both sides. So I have x equals, I wrote the square root, so it's plus or minus, and the square root of 121 is 11. If you look at 28, it has 48 minus x squared equals 0. And they think they're being all tricky by doing that. If we add x squared to both sides, then we have 48 equals x squared. So now we're ready to take the square root of both sides. So x equals plus or minus, and 48 will divide by 2 is 24, divide by 2 is 12, divide by 2 is 6, divide by 2 is 3. For every 2, we're going to take out 1. For every 2, we're going to take out 1. So we have 2 times 2 is 4 on the outside and 3 on the inside. So the answer is plus or minus 4 square roots of 3. Okay, if you will look at number 32, all they did was up the challenge a little bit. It's already squared with the variable on the left, so we're ready to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 4x plus 1 squared is just 4x plus 1. And we've got plus or minus because we wrote the square root. 20 is 2 times 10, which is 2 times 5. For every 2, we're going to take out 1, so that's 2 times the square root of 5. Then we have to subtract 1 from both sides. So we have 4x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2 square roots of 5. Now divide by 4. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2 square roots of 5 divided by 4. There's no point in taking this any further. Leave it as an ugly fraction. But I do want to remind you that in order to reduce, you have to be able to reduce all 3 of the red underlined numbers the 1, the 2, the 4. You have to be able to reduce all 3 of those by the same number in order to reduce it. Okay, that is the information that you need to do the multiples of 3 on lesson 1.4 through 36. I'll see you shortly in the next lesson.